Today we're going to take a look at a guitar the likes of which you probably haven't seen before. I know I certainly haven't. You know, we've talked a lot about innovation in guitars on this channel, and that's something that I just love to see, when things are just a little bit different. And that's why when Dom Pearson from Pearson Instruments out of New Zealand, when he emailed me and asked if he could send me a guitar to review on the channel, I had a look at his website, and I immediately said yes once I saw what he was building, because this is certainly different. Now, there's quite a lot of differences to cover with this guitar. I mean, as you can see, this might make people who enjoy a bit of tone wood question a few things. But let's start with the ideologies behind it, because that's even different from a standard guitar. The first thing is that this guitar arrived in a box significantly smaller than a guitar-sized box, because you assemble this guitar yourself. The assembly is very straightforward though. You bolt on the neck with 4 bolts with the Allen keys provided, you put the bridge on, and you restring it. Everything is provided. That's it. And I haven't seen any other brand do this, but I think it's a good idea. The big main reason is shipping prices. Shipping prices, if you've tried to ship anything recently, are pretty high. And this is coming from New Zealand. Pearson are based out of New Zealand, so it's quite a bit away, and shipping a full-size guitar box would be a lot more expensive than shipping it condensed down. And I have to say, I'm happy to see that for once the idea of putting in the work yourself to build the instrument isn't being labeled as it's a fun thing that you're doing, it's a kit build, whatever. It's actually being, here's a benefit for you, lower shipping price. I like that. It's being honest about things. And speaking of honesty, I have to commend Pearson, because Pearson, this is a one-man operation out of New Zealand. And the body is made by him. We'll talk a little bit more about the materials. This is aluminium or aluminum, depending on where you're from. And this is acrylic with a really custom finish on there. We'll talk more about that as well. But the neck and the pickups and the bridge and tuners and such, those are OEM parts. Those are imported, and Pearson builds the body around them. It's very open about that on the website, and I love to see that, because I can say with 100% certainty, sadly, that there are plenty of large, well-known manufacturers who do the exact same thing, but do not say that. So definitely credit to Pearson there. It's a one-man operation, and his work is on the body building these guitars. So let's talk about another ideology, a big one, and one that I'm not sure I necessarily 100% agree with, but I can certainly see the reasoning behind it. And the ideology is that Pearson believe that headless guitars are going to be kind of the future of electric guitars. They're going to be the most popular instruments. But the drawback to that is, if you want quality hardware, it's a lot harder to get headless hardware in a good quality than it is to get good quality standard guitar hardware. So Pearson designed these guitars, or in fact all the Pearson instruments, around that concept, making headless guitars but with standard guitar hardware. And if you look at this guitar, if we look here, the headstock is in the body. We reverse the body there, you can see that these are tuners, and good quality locking tuners, I might add. But these are standard electric headstock tuners that are put on the body. So this is essentially your headstock, and that leaves our headstock, or where it isn't, because this is a 24 fret roasted maple rosewood fingerboard neck with what looks to be the headstock sheared off, And in its place, you've got this aluminium plate where the ball ends of the strings go through. So the ball ends of the string go through here and are fed down to your body stock, where you've got these kind of recessed tuner holes there. And I will say, while this design might not be for everybody, there are numerous benefits to be had here. First of all, because there's a little bit of it was a headstock left, you can hang this guitar on a wall using a headstock hanger. You've got the little shoulders to hold the neck. Secondly, though, a big thing is that you'll find on a lot of headless guitars where you thread the string through like a standard guitar and you lock it, and then you have to trim the strings here on the headstock or the head stump. You'll find that sometimes you'll get little pokey bits that you just can't cut. With this, you've got the ball end at the headstock, so you can't hurt yourself here. I do like that design. And thirdly, the big thing is it cuts down on price. Pearson can use good quality hardware for a standard guitar, but have his headless guitar design. So let's talk about price for a second. There are 3 Pearson models, each have some variations in general design and price. There is one that is called the Hyper B. That's kind of a Strandberg Bowden style guitar with an aluminium body. Then there's the Hyper S, which is kind of the most Strat-esque looking one. And that again, also in keeping with Pearson's ideas, is a headless guitar with the body made out of aluminium and an acrylic top. And then finally we have what this is. This is the Hyper S Ergo. And the Ergo bit is this piece here. This, if you can see, is a built-in leg rest into the body with multiple different settings. As standard, it comes like that. Kind of a standard electric guitar. But if you want to maybe have it in the classical position, even when resting on my right leg, it's now in a more comfortable, ergonomically playing position. Especially if I go into the classical position, it is perfectly poised for that. I have to say, I was a bit skeptical when I first saw this, but when I tried it out, it made a lot of sense. I can just rip through arpeggios on this thing. Now the Hyper S Ergos come in at $819. I know that price. Even with this finish, I believe this was kind of custom done for me because the box said KDH custom on it. But it's green, white and orange. So it's the Irish flag, which I think is really cool. Because this is kind of a stage guitar, I think. But the price for this, $819. However, if you use code KDH, I have a code and it'll give you a discount. It'll give you a 5% discount off anything from Pearson. So I think for this guitar it's like $40 off or something. It's money back in your pocket. So it's a lot cheaper than I was expecting for a guitar made in New Zealand that also very clearly has a lot of R&D here. This is thought about. So for $800 or so, that's not bad. But in saying that, this guitar might not be for everybody. There's a lot of modern things about this instrument. And guitar players do tend to be traditionalists. While it is Pearson's ideas that headless guitars are the future, I think expanding a model like this, or the Hyper S, where it's more Strat-like, to have a headstock and just be a very showy guitar, because let's be real, this is a stage guitar. Some people would probably like it with a headstock. Like, this is an acrylic guitar that doesn't weigh a ton. If you've ever played an acrylic guitar, solid acrylic, you've probably played it for one song and then put it down. Even sitting down, it kills your leg. The heaviest guitar to date that I've ever picked up was an acrylic, solid acrylic BC Rich. And I had to put it down after just a few minutes because it was so heavy. Whereas these guitars, especially the Hyper S model, give the acrylic look, and you can get the custom finishes as well. But it gives that acrylic look without the acrylic weight. I believe this model is 3.3 kilograms, which isn't the heaviest. I think it's like 7.25 pounds, something around that. It's certainly not like a Les Paul, right? And equally, all the weight is in the body, so it actually balances really, really well. The strap buttons are here and here on the body. I'll actually step closer. They are here and here. And when you hold it, the body, it feels weightless when it's strapped onto you, which is really cool. I very much appreciate that. I've only come across a few guitars that are like that, and this is one of them. Now, like I said, though, this guitar isn't going to be for everyone. It is very clearly and obviously different from your standard electric guitar. So, for example, the body thickness is a lot thicker than you'd expect, but it's also thinner. That's a weird way to say this, but let me try and explain. So let me show you here the thickness of the acrylic top. I think it's about 6 mil, and it's got this nice bevel here on the forearm, so it doesn't hurt you at all. But it's 6 mil thick. That's really nice. And then the aluminium part of the body there, that's, I don't know, it's body thickness. That's what a standard guitar body thickness would be. However, the added thickness is actually because the pickups and hardware and everything are mounted on top of the body. So the pickups, and I suppose the neck as well, add an extra thickness. Maybe you can see that there on the other side. So you've got the body, then you've got the neck, you got the pickups. So overall, the body is actually a lot thicker than you might think, even though it's quite thin. In saying that, that's just something to get used to. It's not a negative or anything. It's actually, I quite like the belly contour. I'll show you on this camera here. So the acrylic extends to here, and the aluminium comes to there, and you've got this gap, and it just fits. It's like a deep belly contour on a standard Strat, which is a cool design. I like that. The only negative really about this guitar, I'll say, is the control layout. It just, to me, it feels a little bit too cramped. There isn't a whole lot of space on this guitar because, you know, you've got the leg rest part. Yeah, I think if you were using this guitar on a strap, you wouldn't need the leg rest. So you'd be likely to tuck it in, put it into its first position there, because you don't need a leg rest when you've got it on a strap if you're playing it live. The problem there is that this space suddenly becomes very limited. If I show you here, if I'm playing and I try to adjust, I immediately have to hit this. Kind of same with the tone knob, not as bad, but certainly with the volume. So let's say we'll extend it out. Once it's like that, there's no real issue. I'm not knocking into it. I will say it does take quite a bit of getting used to, though. If I was designing this guitar, I'd get rid of the tone knob, and I'd make the volume knob a push-pull to get rid of this switch, because that switch is in a great position. The pickup switch, I just don't think it is. It's very tight up against that humbucker, and you really have to learn to get in deep beside the pickup, because that's how it's mounted. So you really have to. It's a bit tight, I will say. But other than that, once you kind of get used to it, I've been playing it for a while, it's not as bad as it initially was, but it was certainly something that I noted when I initially picked it out, played it, and was writing down the review. Let's just do a little quick demo, flicking through some different pickup selections. The amplifier I'm using is a Zuta GBG 120. We're going to use some clean, some distortion, a little bit of solo. For the lead, we're going to use a little bit of delay, a touch of delay. And the amp is running directly into a 2 Notes Captor X with a Marshall 412 cab George Lynch impulse response, and that's going direct to you. So let's start with the clean. This is the bridge humbucker. And this is the neck. And while we're here, I'll show you the coil split. We'll start with the neck humbucker in full, and then I'll flick it in. So. All right, a little bit of gain. We're back on the bridge humbucker. And why not just close it out with all the gain, full gain lead? So there we have it, the Peasrson Instruments Hyper S Ergo. A very different guitar, something really unusual, but I've had a lot of fun playing this and it plays really well. It's a very well made, good guitar. Like even if you look at the parts, this is a roasted maple neck, this is a rosewood fingerboard with 24 stainless steel frets. You've got the acrylic looks, it does look cool. Let's be real. It looks really cool. Then you've got the lightweight balancing of the aluminium body, and with the built-in leg rest, which is actually very comfortable. I do enjoy this guitar quite a bit. So a huge thank you to Peasrson for sending this guitar to me. I've had fun. Hope you've had fun too. Check out the link in the description if you want to take a closer look at the Peasrson stuff. And don't forget the 5% off with code KDH. Yeah. Like the video, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!